Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Raymundi, and this is the UFC 230 official weigh-ins live stream. I'm here at the Marriott Marquis in Midtown Manhattan, the Big Apple, New York City, with the one, the only, the man in the hat, Chuck Mindenhall. Chuck.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
What is going on? I'll tell you what, unseasonably warm out there. I think you brought some of that nice weather with you, Mark.
Hopefully it stays that way for the rest of the weekend, because it was a little chilly for my taste the last few days.
Yeah.
We're of course at the UFC 230 official weigh-ins, where Daniel Cormier, the UFC heavyweight champion, and Derrick Lewis, the challenger for that belt, will weigh in just in a few moments here. We're about 4 minutes away from the start of the official weigh-ins. Also, of course, co-main event is Chris Weidman, the former middleweight champ, New York's own, against Jacare Souza. Late change on that fight. 2 weeks ago, Weidman thought he was going to be fighting Luke Rockhold, and now he'll be fighting Jacare Souza. Also on that main card, another very interesting fight in the middleweight division, Israel Adesanya, top prospect against Derrick Lewis.
Tell you what, you're just looking at the card, Mark. It's actually not too bad. You know, for all the starts and stops on this card, I feel like the main card, let's hope, stays intact, and it looks pretty good.
Don't jinx us now, Chuck.
Yeah. I would knock on some wood, but only your head is available to me right now.
I was about to say that there aren't too many key fighters on this card who are in danger of missing weight, but if I said that, then I too would be jinxing it.
Well, at least we have heavyweights at the top. For somebody to miss weight in the main event, something has gone very wrong.
And Derrick Lewis does.
And you got the Popeyes thing in play now. We gotta.
Hopefully Derrick Lewis was not eating Popeyes, his new sponsor, last night. I think Derrick Lewis does usually cut weight to make the 265-pound heavyweight limit, but he looks lean coming into this week. He looks like he's already there, if not even lighter. I'm curious to see what he will weigh in at.
Yeah, he looks like he stayed in pretty good shape. As Casey adjusts our microphones. Intimate gathering here in New York.
Not exactly like the UFC.
No. The eager chatter of anticipation.
Should be starting any time now.
A couple minutes.
Actually, there is one person I forgot about who has had weight issues in the past, and that was, of course, Sijara Eubanks last December.
That's a good point. Yeah.
At the Ultimate Fighter finale. She was supposed to fight Nico Montano in the inaugural UFC Women's Flyweight title fight. Was unable to make the scale. She got sick. Went to the hospital. But spoke to Sijara this week, and it seems like those issues have been corrected.
Yeah, she seemed very confident that she would hit the scale right on the mark.
Digital scale today. Digital scale. No beam scale. Digital.
Got the digital scale today, I'm being told.
Digital scale today. Mm-hmm. Well, I take back what I said about people not being in danger of making weight, missing weight.
Yes, the adventure begins. Very lively vibe in here right now, Mark. For being early morning. Early morning for you West Coasters, anyway. All right, 9 o'clock.
Chuck, any fights on this card that stand out to you outside of the obvious ones that are getting attention?
Yeah, talking to a guy like Travis Knight, realizing he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder going in.
Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I always say that. I even called him to his face, Travis, on accident. But yes, Jason Knight, talking to him yesterday, and you get he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, which I always love. A guy coming out, he's got a bit of a losing streak, but we know how he likes to fight, and he knows he's kind of in a big spot at that kind of main event of the prelims. So I expect that fight to be really good.
Do we know why he did his face off without a shirt on yesterday? Has that been explained?
I'm not sure there's a lot that's explicable when it comes to Mr. Knight. It's kind of he's one of the true characters in the game. This is the first time I've got a chance to really talk to him, and you realize he's a little bit out there. I see he had his cowboy boots too, So
is he comfortable with the nickname that has been bestowed upon him by the internet fans?
What's that?
Hick Diaz?
Man, I wish I'd have asked. I do remember that, actually hearing that now. It's just a Brazilian, it's just Portuguese way of saying
Rick Diaz.
Oh. I somehow doubt he would take offense to it. All right, here we go. Some officials are making their way out now.
All right, we have some movement here.
There's movement, the camera, people are positioning themselves. It's all about to go down.
Is in the house.
Let's see what they're doing first here. Ah, place is abuzz. What a wonderful setting, man.
Won't even really need the golf voice today because it is actually pretty loud in here.
Yeah, this is the loudest. It's like being in a nightclub. I think a lot of these people are still a little bit drunk. All right, it looks like they want to be bringing somebody out here.
First up is Matt Favola, who fights Lando Venata on the UFC Fight Pass featured prelim of UFC 230. That is a lightweight fight, 155-pound limit, well, 156-pound limit, I should say.
Looks confident on the scale.
155.4 Matt Favola.
See, if I'm a fighter, I want to be the first on that scale too. I want to get this over with.
That was one of the stories of the week back in October with Khabib and Conor McGregor. Khabib did everything on his own terms, and including being the first person to win. And here's the aforementioned.
Speaking of Hick Diaz, here he is.
Jason Knight about to weigh in. That'll be an FS1 prelim fight against Jordan Rinaldi.
Yeah.
Featured prelim on FS1.
Yeah, you gotta love this kid.
Mississippi's own Jason Knight.
$145.8.
145.8 for Jason Knight.
And
Who
we
gives
get
out a spirited yell.
Spirited yell. I tell you what, nothing like a spirited yell in a banquet room at 9 a.m. in the morning in New York City. There's Carl Robertson.
Carl
middleweights.
Yes, Carl Robertson up next, part of that glut of middleweight fights on the main card. Of course, he fights Jack Marshman. It'll be the second fight on the main card.
Talking to Robertson yesterday, I think he thinks he can steal the show a little bit.
184.6 for Carl Robertson. That's Robertson, no T.
Robertson, that's right.
There's no T in Robertson.
Somebody has stolen that T. That's like the Johnny Hendricks missing an N. All right, here we go. They're rolling along here.
That Q is certainly formed. Here's
Mr.
Jordan Rinaldi, who fights, of course, Jason Knight, who just weighed in. That's a featherweight fight. Featured FS1 prelim.
145.8.
145.8 for Jordan Rinaldi, the exact same
yep.
number as Jason Knight. Virtually identical, Chuck.
Everything else. So that fight is official.
That fight is official.
1 of 13 fights is now official. 13 total fights on this card. That is a big card.
No spirited yell from Jordan Rinaldi.
No, very subdued.
Didn't quite nail it.
Well, he hasn't had his morning coffee yet.
I'm still working on mine, being honest.
And let's see who we got coming out.
Kurt Hollabaugh. He fights Shane Burgos on the UFC Fight Pass prelims.
It should be a good fight as well.
That, of course, is a featherweight bout.
145 even.
145 on the nose.
He knew it. He knew it. Looking in good shape there. That should be a really good fight. I like the idea that Burgos coming off his first loss. Be interesting to see what he's able to do here.
Israel Adesanya.
Oh, here we go.
Here is Israel Adesanya.
Total confidence as he takes the scale here.
Man many have pegged as a future star in this sport. He fights Derek Brunson on the main card at UFC 230.
184.8.
184.
Hey, hush comes over the room.
Makes it look easy. And he does not cut a lot of weight, Chuck.
No, he doesn't. He's very lean.
He does not walk around too far away from what he just weighed in at.
I'll tell you what, nobody's carrying the swagger to the scale quite like last Stylebender. Did you see that guy?
Ben Saunders.
Here's
Ben
Killer
Saunders,
B,
veteran of the game.
Ben Saunders, the Jeet Kune Do expert, also 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu, Eddie Bravo.
Amazing to see him still rolling along, man. Great to see. Look at that smile.
170.4.
170.4 for Ben Saunders, who fights Lyman Good on the FS1 prelims. Almost feels like a Bellator throwback.
It does,
fight, Ben
100%,
Saunders versus
yeah.
Lyman Good.
I wonder if we'll get one of those vintage performances. It's been a little while.
I wonder if Bjorn Rebbe will be watching
Yeah.
that fight.
I'm not sure they get the feed down there in Mexico, but we'll keep an eye.
Now here is Queen's own
Here comes
Julio Arce.
Mr. Brian
who fights
Campbell
Shaman
trying to take
Moraes
us.
in a featherweight fight on the FS1 prelims.
145 even.
145 even for Julio Arce. Bayside Queens, Tiger Schulman products. Julio Arce.
8 fighters down, Mark. I love how in these official weigh-ins we get about 20 guys quickly, and then we wait out the rest.
It's pretty much how it goes every time. Here comes Chris Weidman, co-headliner, who fights Ronaldo Jacare Souza.
It's great to see him not cutting as much weight, you know? I remember back in the day that was always an issue.
He looked to be in fantastic shape at open workouts.
Was it the Damian Maia fight in short notice and he had to cut something like 35 pounds in a very short amount of time? goes into his
damaging
lore.
to his body.
Oh,
And he has mentioned that multiple times.
He has 100%.
Big fight for Chris Weidman could be a title eliminator against Jacare.
186 even.
186.
Look at that.
Chris Weidman.
The fans respond.
Long Island zone. We'll have a lot of fans in attendance at Madison Square Garden.
Partisan crowd for Weidman. He's got his buddies here. He's got his faction behind us. And Mr. Ray Longo.
It's Ray Longo.
And a single voice chant of Weidman. Oh. And Burgos is a big hit here.
He, of
Really
course,
interested to
fights
see.
Kurt Hollabaugh.
Really
the
interested
fight
to see
pass
what this kid is able to do after getting pieced up in his last fight.
145.6.
Maybe fine.
145.6 for Shane Burgos. Also a Tiger Schulman's product,
Yes,
like
he is.
Julio Arce.
They're
Bronx
well
native.
represented. Yeah.
Jack Marshman.
Here comes Marshman.
Jack Marshman up now. He's
Such a nice fellow.
He, of course, has Carl Robertson in a middleweight fight on the main card.
185.4.
185.4 for Jack Marshman. From Wales.
Yes.
The Welshman.
He took great pride. He said, I think that he was the second fighter from Wales to fight at MSG. And I don't remember who he said was the first. Here's Lyman Good, also.
Lyman Good.
A lot of fans here.
Speaking of Tiger Schulman's, apparently they were all cutting weight together this morning. The first ever Bellator welterweight champion, Lyman Good. He, of course, fights Ben Saunders at UFC 230 on the FS1 prelims.
Very intense looking fellow.
169.6.
169.6. Lyman Good is what they would call Chuck in the pro wrestling world as a body guy.
Yeah.
Lando Venata.
Groovy Lando Venata is up next.
Yeah, cruising right along here.
He fights Matt Favola in the UFC Fight Pass featured prelim. Recently departed from Jackson Wing MMA.
Yeah.
155.4.
155.4 for Lando Venata. The always exciting.
He brings the fight. And what a nice intense stare he had there for the cameras.
Someone who could be fighting for his UFC career
It's true.
tomorrow night.
Yeah, it usually goes one or two ways. A desperate fighter a lot of times fights desperately, so we know what he likes to do. That should be a cracking fight.
Has not won in his last 3 fights. And only has that one W in UFC against John Mendesi back at UFC 206.
But that was a spectacular finish. He gave Tony Ferguson a pretty good fight, too. There's Jared Cannonier.
Jared Cannonier. And this should be interesting because he is moving down in weight.
That is a
Former
good point,
heavyweight,
yes.
former light heavyweight. Now this is his middleweight debut, and it will be against David Branch on short notice on the main card.
184.8.
184.8.
Look at that.
How about that?
Yeah, it comes uneven.
Short notice, new weight class, no problem
trouble.
for Jared Cannonier.
Got a little bit of bad blood with Mr. Branch. That always translates to a fun fight.
Speak of the devil, David Branch. That's a way
Here
in.
he comes.
Another New York native. Enzo Gracie Academy product. Excellent ground game. And I would even go as far as say unparalleled swag.
Yeah. You don't want to get too near it. Mr. Branch has a lot of clothes to peel off here, including some UFC socks. He's on the scale.
David Branch on the scale.
185.6.
185.6. No problem for the Brooklyn native.
And another intense. Love it. David Branch is a fairly no-nonsense kind of guy.
Roxanne Modafferi
Here we go.
up next. She fights Sijara Eubanks on the FS1 prelims in a very, very important women's flyweight fight.
And a rare chance of revenge, you know?
124.8.
124.8 for Roxanne Modafferi. As you noted, she did lose to Sijara Eubanks on The Ultimate Fighter last year, trying to get that win back.
Yeah. Here comes Jacare.
Here comes Ronaldo Souza, Jacare.
Jacare shows up in his underwear. See, now that's how you do it, Mark.
He's in the co-headliner, of course, against Chris Weidman, big-time middleweight fight.
185.4.
185.4.
Well, our co-main event is official.
Done deal. And of course, he was supposed to fight David Branch on this card, and before the deck got shuffled a number of times for UFC 230.
A great opportunity for Jacare, who has hovered perennially, I would say, at the top of the gig. Comfortably.
Credentialed media member for UFC 230.
Right.
He has been here all week, doing his thing, working a bit for Submission Radio, I believe.
Yeah.
Our friends from SB Nation down in Australia. Getting some feedback that our stream was down just briefly, but I think we're back now.
I purposely shut it down, Mark. Blue streak of invective, but All right, we were humming right along here. Let's see. Both of our first prelim bouts. We're waiting those contestants. We haven't seen Montel Jackson or Brian Kelleher. And of course,
the one
glaring one, Ms.
the one
Eubanks.
that you have to worry about, the one that you have to think about, is Sijara Eubanks. Things have changed for her quite a bit since The Ultimate Fighter. She's moved up to New York, trains now with Mark Henry.
She kind of talked about fairly ominously, or I guess maybe just intriguingly, what she might say to Joe Rogan. She said she has something planned for after her victory for the microphone. That should be very interesting. I'm always a big fan of that type of thing, when people kind of tease some kind of action they're about to take.
Well, Sijara had some beef with me at Media Day yesterday. He was not happy about the dream UFC all-women's card that I concocted for the A-side this week.
Yeah. And I know you spent countless weeks putting that together.
I spent a good amount of hours putting that together, Chuck.
I personally found it pretty good.
Pretty good.
There's a couple, but you know, that's there's no win. You can't win in these situations. I still would love to see a Gina Carano-Ronda Rousey fight. It made me actually contemplate that, and I thought, you know, how perfect would that be nowadays, you know, for that to actually happen. Did you have Julia Budd against Cyborg?
Chris Cyborg.
Okay. I do think that is a fight to look at some point. I hope it can be made. Got to bring the partition down, make another trade, though.
That's right. That's what I proposed on the A side. Got to trade for Julia Budd.
Who would you trade to get Julia Budd?
That's a good question.
See, this is always the problem, right? Like, it's determining value. I did a piece basically pointing out some trades and all the hate I received just for putting it out there.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there are almost 600 fighters on the UFC roster. So how do you come up with a trade in that enormous pool of talent? It would be very interesting, Chuck, if the phrase trade value became commonplace in MMA. It's a great win by X fighter.
Right.
He's got major trade value now for the UFC. They can trade him to Bellator or one championship or.
If we get to that
Ryzen.
level, I'm not sure what I would do at that point. Just looking at the trade that happened, it was just the perfect storm of conditional elements and the proper amount of disgruntledness between the players and the organizations and the idleness of the NASCAR. It just made sense on so many levels.
I can't imagine that we'll be seeing trades frequently.
No, I can't imagine either. It's been fun to speculate. You know, it's fun to do that sort of thing. But if it really got down to it, it's probably not something you'd want to get used to in the sport.
I was wondering. I think on the beat, I was wondering who will be the first fighter to demand a trade.
Yeah. Well, see, now that part of it I do think will happen. Once it's like anything. Once the first domino falls,
could happen in a few hours.
Yes, we might see that today on the scale. All right. Well, a break in the action here because
Yes, indeed.
time we got 24 minutes into this thing, and
Still,
17 fighters have already weighed in. 1, 2, 3,
9 to go.
Yep, we got 9 to go.
Still got a long way until 11 a.m. local time.
Yeah. As we know, somebody will wait until the last minute.
Stop calling out Derrick Lewis, Chuck. By the way, this rise of Derrick Lewis has been something else. I want to say there's been nothing like it in MMA history.
Yeah. You know, sometimes these fights are put together so quickly. They come together out of necessity for the UFC that you lose a bit of a crazy backstory. And I think that Derrick Lewis, out of all fighters, has one of the crazier backstories just to get to this spot. And of course, he himself likes to downplay that sort of thing. He picks his shots very well, both in the cage and out. So it's interesting that he's in this spot. I don't know if he's getting the full love for that 9 out of 10 fights as a heavyweight, and his ability to just basically persevere in there against guys trying to take his head off and then landing his shot late. So there are a lot of fun intangibles about this fight, you know.
It's been a fun build to this fight, which is, in my opinion, a stark comparison to the build for the last UFC pay-per-view main event between Khabib and McGregor, where that was a very hostile, dark build, and this has been entertaining and fun.
Yeah, it has,
and fairly light.
Yeah, and I think that there's always a little bad blood between people, but this is, Daniel Cormier and Derrick Lewis, I think they both are kind of in on this together too. A shared experience, if you will. Not that they're not going to try to do harm to one another, but there's a mutual respect there to step up and do this fight. So sometimes that's a good thing. And it's very similar in the co-main event. It's just not a card that has bad blood flowing through the octagon on this one, but you just know that especially in that co-main, these guys have been around a long time. They've Weidman being a former champion, it has all the elements of him fighting in his backyard again, where, if you recall, the last time it was a dream for him to get to Madison Square Garden, and he gets brutally knocked out by Yoel Romero, so this is a chance for him to actually pick up that win at Madison Square Garden. So, you look at all those elements, and it adds up to something pretty cool.
Although, unfortunately, I'm not sure how much that translates into pay-per-view
Yeah,
buys.
I'm not sure about that either. I don't think it's going to crush the pay-per-view numbers, and I'm not sure either. I didn't check in on the tickets recently, but from what I was hearing, still plenty of tickets available as well.
What would be your over/under for pay-per-view buys for this card?
Danik was saying. For pay-per-view buys, I would say that. This is a tough one, man. I'm gonna say that if it gets around like 300, wouldn't that seem about like in that realm?
I think they would probably be happy with that.
Yeah, I think that's what they might be looking at. I think they would be happy with that. Maybe that might even be an ambitious number, but given the heavyweight belt, you think that there might be enough clout there to at least bring in a decent number, a respectable number. I mean, the Jacare-Weidman fight, if it happens, if that fight happens, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that's one of the biggest fights in that, in middleweight history. I think that's just a huge fight. And here's Cormier.
Here comes the champ, Daniel Cormier.
Champ.
DC himself being told by the commission that he must take his shirt off.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to dupe him. I don't think he needs to at heavyweight.
I don't believe so.
$251.2.
251.2 for Daniel Cormier, who will defend his heavyweight title against Derrick Lewis on Saturday night.
He just always looks like so carefree.
He's been very loose all week.
I think, out of all the fighters who can appreciate the situations that they light into, he seems to always understand and absorb it right away. Like, DC always seems to be completely making the most of his moments and enjoying the process. I don't know. I'm not sure you can say that about too many fighters.
Possibly worth noting, Chuck, at UFC 226 when Cormier fought Stipe Miocic, he weighed in at 246 pounds. So he is somewhat heavier for this fight. I'm not sure if that means anything, 5 pounds and change heavier. Is that because Derrick Lewis is a bigger man? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
A bit heavier for DC.
He's got that...
This is a man that fought at 205.
Got a Carl's Jr.
Light heavyweight champion, 251 pounds. That's
pretty amazing, man.
That's a big man. That's almost 50 pounds over his championship weight at light heavyweight.
He is compact. He's built like an accordion. You see him out there? Not the most imposing looking figure, but to watch him fight. Two fighters left on the main card now. Derek Brunson and Derrick Lewis.
If you were not an MMA fan and you met Daniel Cormier on the street somewhere, you would not suspect that he is the baddest man on the planet.
No.
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
I was remembering when he was in Boston and he was fighting Osimir, and he was talking about going back home and mowing his lawn, and I thought that's so Daniel Cormier, thinking about going home and just doing very neighborly things and being a man of the neighborhood. It must be a great feeling for people to be able to look at you and think not much of it, but know that you can pretty much beat up any man that you encounter
On the planet. Yesterday, I asked DC, we were talking about potential next fights for him. If he wins this fight, he could possibly defend against Brock Lesnar, when that fight would be. He said February. I asked him, how about that January 26th card in Anaheim, UFC 233? And he said, I may have a wrestling tournament that weekend. He coaches high school wrestling.
Right.
And he may not be able to defend the heavyweight title against Brock Lesnar because he's coaching high school wrestling. I mean, that is Daniel Cormier in a nutshell right there.
He's a very logical and reasonable and sensible person, and I think that his priorities are often more geared towards his family life and the kids he's coaching, things like that. He's able to handle a lot, and I think he's just got a big energy about him that maybe goes understated. I was hearing somebody talking about like how even though he took this fight basically on short notice and he's out here in New York, he's still able to make time to take his kids on Halloween out trick-or-treating, things like that. Just a very unique individual. I feel like he doesn't. I don't think he would do something if he felt like he had to completely compromise his family, time with his family and everything at this point.
Unless, of course, that is a WWE commentary gig, which could
it seems like it's forthcoming. I know they've talked to him. What a great landing spot that would be for him as well.
I think that would be a perfect fit.
Oh yeah. Here we go, Mr. Kelleher.
Brian Kelleher. Brian Boom himself.
Big fan of the
Strong Island.
And they break out the towel immediately. And off go the drawers.
Fights Montel Jackson on the UFC Fight Pass prelims. Bantamweight fights.
There's studying the scale pretty intensely here.
137, and Brian Kelleher has missed weight on his first attempt. 137. 1 pound off from Brian
1
Kelleher.
pound off, and it looked like he kind of knew that he might have to figure this out.
We'll find out if he'll get time.
Does not look happy about that.
To get that last pound.
Sarge's the only woman on the planet. Sarge's the only. She's the only female left. There's only one female fight, right? Yeah, seriously. They just took the curtain backstage. So they just took the curtain backstage. So.
And Mark Raimonde doing his investigative work, trying to find out exactly what's going on with Mr. Kelleher. Maybe he'll have some information for us. Mark, were you checking in on Kelleher?
I was just checking to see if Kelleher gets extra time, if he'll take that extra time, trying to find out that situation, and I was told that as soon as they know, they will let us know.
Yeah. Still awaiting the arrival of Sijara Eubanks, whom, as we know, has had some problems with weight cutting in the past.
Also have not seen Shaman Moraes.
No extra time. So he's over.
No extra time for Brian Kelleher. He will be fined 20% of his purse.
20% says Mr. Ratner. He's always right on top of it.
So Brian Kelleher's official weight is 137 pounds. He misses by 1.
20% of his purse now goes to Montel Jackson, whom we've still haven't seen weigh in.
Here comes the curtain and Sijara Eubanks, who fights Roxanne Modafferi on the FS1 prelims. We've got a towel. We've got a curtain. We have
It's almost like they're going to do a magic trick up there.
have a very dehydrated looking Sajara Eubanks as well, unfortunately.
That is not. It's never a good look. I know you've been a big advocate for getting people into their appropriate weight classes.
127.2.
127.2, and Sajara Eubanks has missed weight, and that is it. She's off by 1.2 pounds.
Well, that's a shame. I know she was confident that she was going to be on weight. Very difficult situation for her as well. It was originally going to be the main event, like at one point was going to be the main event of this fight, and this doesn't help her cause. Yeah,
imagine if it was the main event and the title fight and she missed weight, that would have been a complete disaster for the UFC.
Yep.
And now you have to wonder about her future chances of getting a title shot.
One time's an anomaly, two times is the pattern. And that is a bummer for her.
Of course, like we mentioned earlier, she went to the hospital before what would have been a title fight against Nico Montano last December, following the Ultimate Fighter. Missed the opportunity, came back. Won earlier this year. That was against Lauren Murphy in June. And put herself in a position to possibly get the title shot back if she were to beat Monteferi, and now you have to wonder.
Yeah, I don't think that helps her cause at all in terms of title picture. So we were running wrong pretty smoothly there. Now we've had back-to-back fighters missing weight.
And she did take this fight on somewhat short notice.
That's true.
Relatively speaking, but I'm of the opinion that if you're not able to make that weight class, Eubanks would be fined 20% for purse, same as Kelleher.
Eubanks can still get a title shot though if she wins.
Yeah.
Missing weight is never,
as Casey just pointed out, Eubanks could still get that title shot. 100%. I mean, obviously a newer division, and she is still among the top contestants, but it gets more and more complicated when the asterisks start piling in.
It's like an Avril Lavigne song. Why has it got to be so complicated?
Oh, don't put songs in my head, Casey. Six fighters remain. Including Shaman Moraes and Montel Jackson, Derek Brunson, Derrick Lewis.
So after all that drama with Sajara Eubanks over the last few weeks, where she was supposed to be the main event against Valentina Shevchenko, and she wasn't the main event, and then she was given this fight against Roxanne Monteferi, which could have been a title eliminator. She misses weight by 1.2.
You wonder how
and that possible post-fight interview with Joe Rogan is not going to be nearly as exciting it can be, because Joe Rogan's reply will be very simple if it happens.
Exactly right. I think she might have missed her chance there, that platform. As Casey pointed out, though, it's never a definitive thing, especially in these new weight classes, that she won't be able to correct herself and get that chance. But
Yeah, it is a shame.
it makes you appreciate when you see certain people missing weight on multiple occasions. It makes you appreciate the people you never see have a problem with it. And there are some who never miss weight who do still cut a lot of weight. So some people have it more dialed in than others, but
And you have to wonder if 125 is really the right weight class for her.
Right.
Because now there can be no blame placed on the Ultimate Fighter. Those cuts in a very short amount of time, which was a legitimate claim when she cut back in December. Did not have enough time to recover from those 3 weight cuts in a very short amount of time. Understandable then, although still tough to deal with. And now you just have to wonder, is 125 really right for her?
The one thing you don't want is to be a contender that's complicated, and unfortunately, unfortunately now the track record is that it's very complicated. It's not just a slam dunk. She's going to make weight, and it's a shame because I think a lot of people really came to figure out who Sijara Eubanks was this whole time. Given that I'm not sure if a lot of people watched The Ultimate Fighter, the season she was on, but at the same time, she was in the headlines a lot for this fight, and I thought that she would benefit from that ultimately. Just having her name out there, a good performance, I thought maybe that could translate. I think she still could have a big performance, but obviously it's something will be taken away from that now.
Yeah, and it was an opportunity for her to silence those doubters and those naysayers and get a win emphatically against Roxanne Montferry if that were to be what happened. It was an opportunity at least, and now it has gone by the wayside, and now all those detractors and all that negativity is only going to intensify.
And I think Eubanks strikes me as a very fiery fighter who likes to feed off a little bit of the aggressive tones against her, but unfortunately when you're feeling those flames as well, it just changes.
Still an hour and 15 minutes to go. These official weigh-ins. Daniel Cormier has successfully weighed in for his heavyweight title defense against Derrick Lewis at 251.2 pounds. Still waiting for Derrick Lewis. The co-main event is official. Chris Weidman and Jacare Souza both have weighed in. Weidman at 186 and Jacare at 185.4.
I'll tell you what, I give a lot of credit to Chris Weidman. Back in the day, he did cut a lot of weight. He has literally trimmed himself down to a point where it's no longer the issue that it was. And he's a guy, even though he's been at the top, he's had some big time acclaim, obviously, and some big paydays and everything else for being the champion, who humbles himself. He's a psych major, and I feel like he does it to himself, But he's a very humble guy when it comes down to it, in ways that he should be. And he has figured this out over the years, and it's good to see him in such good spirits heading into this fight. I know he was messing around with Daniel Cormier a little bit yesterday, and he's added a very kind of welcome to my hometown vibe to this, and you can always get behind that. So I'm very glad that fight is official, and it looks like we're good to go.
He has been incredibly loose all week.
Yeah.
All week, really. I mean, he was having fun with John Vellante at open workouts, shooting the basketball around on the MSG floor. He's really just been, incredibly loose, soaking it in, just having a good time, and
I think you got to sometimes, especially you get these chances. This is a guy who grew up out here in New York, and I believe him when he says he dreamed of fighting at Madison Square Garden. I think a lot of people do contemplate that sort of thing, and he gets a rare mulligan to go back there and correct what happened with Romero, and I think he's soaking it in, like you said. I think that he's a guy who appreciates the opportunity in front of him.
And this is also a guy in Chris Weidman who worked very hard in getting MMA legalized in New York. He was in Albany very often lobbying with lawmakers
that
up
is
there.
a good point, yeah.
That has gone forgotten a little bit because, I mean, we're now 2 years into the sport being legalized, and it feels like a long time ago that it wasn't. There have been so many events in New York, but not too long ago, when Chris Weidman was the champion, he was fighting hard to get the sport that he competes in legalized in his home state.
He was very active in that pursuit, and obviously we just saw our good buddy Mark Ratner, who was also instrumental in bringing the UFC here. And you know, in the day we used to have these press conferences with Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White and other top members of the UFC would be here lobbying to get it in. Mark Romane has to bat away his fan contingency.
Looks like there is some movement in the front of the room. Someone coming, potentially. Who will it be?
Adam? Oh, come on.
Adam. Just Adam.
Just Adam.
We were wondering how he
Been
pronounces his
relegated
last name as well.
One name status. Adam Vichoric.
I think that's close to correct, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure how to pronounce Adam's last name.
This is when you need John Anik.
Vichoric. Either way, he fights in the opener of the card against Marcos Rogerio de Lima, heavyweight fight.
$232.2.
232.2 for Adam.
Adam.
Poland zone.
We would never cut it doing this kind of commentary for KSW. All those long Polish names, we would never get it done.
26-year-old prospect, 6'5".
He's a big boy.
He's a specimen.
Still waiting on his counterpart, Marcos Rogerio de Lima.
Now, is Derrick Lewis cutting weight or just sleeping?
Yeah, that's a good question. Casey's wondering if Derrick Lewis is cutting weight or just sleeping. I feel like it's 50-50. I would say it's 95-5. I don't really think he's cutting weight, although I guess it is a possibility. What did he weigh in last time?
265.
265, right? Okay. So I guess there is a possibility he's shedding a pound or two.
Still waiting, of course, on Mr. Lewis, the headliner, who's challenging for the heavyweight title. Also, Derek Brunson, Shaman Moraes, Montel Jackson, and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. That's it, right?
That's it. Montel Jackson already knows he's getting an extra 20%.
Indeed.
Yeah. The same as Roxanne Modafferi.
So this is the part of the broadcast where we give interesting facts about this local town.
Okay. So this is my first time in New York. I don't know a lot about its history, but I know it was founded in the 1950s.
Yes, yes.
And
It's The Windy Apple.
The Windy Apple, correct? See, that's where our former guy took things, who's sitting behind us doing his own thing now. But he took it to the next level. Me, I take it back down to the level that I'm comfortable on, which is factless and guesswork. Mark Ratner checking in on somebody behind the scenes here. Six fighters left to weigh in. On the supersized edition of the pay-per-view.
So, Mark. Yeah. So once we get the beams, the digital scale. We have weightnesses again.
Coincidence?
Is that 6? There's 6 left. Let's see who they're bringing out here. Looks like somebody's coming out.
Got some movement here.
Such excitement.
In front of the room, commission
and
gathering.
A dozen people spill out of the door.
Here comes Montel Jackson.
Okay. There's Montel. And the towel is out immediately for this one, Mark. Let's hope Montel can slip under here.
Fights Brian Kelleher in a bantamweight fight.
136.
136 even, so he has made it. And his opponent, Brian Kelleher, has missed weight, so Montel Jackson will get a percentage of Kelleher's purse.
And the towel has been removed. Montel Jackson with a very relieved look on his face. Which brings us down to only 5 fighters remaining. And at this stage, each man who walks through that door, or woman, becomes a ceremony.
If you're just joining us here, this is the MMAfighting.com UFC 230 official weigh-in broadcast. I'm Mark Raymundi, alongside the man in the hat, Chuck Hall. We have seen Daniel Cormier weigh in, 251.2 pounds for the double champ. He's defending his heavyweight belt against Derrick Lewis on Saturday at UFC 230. Have not seen Mr. Lewis just yet. The Black Beast has not weighed in, and he still has about an hour left to do so. We've also seen the co-main event become official. Chris Weidman and Jacare Souza both weighed in successfully. We've also seen 2 weight misses, Chuck. Cesaro Eubanks missed weight by 1.2 pounds. Brian Kelleher missed weight by 1 pound. Eubanks, of course, will be fighting Roxanne Modafferi in what would have been considered a very important fight for the women's flyweight division. Still an important fight, but it would be hard to imagine Eubanks getting a title shot off of missing weight this time following her weight mishap last year as well.
Yeah, unfortunate set of events there. You hate to see it too, because there are a couple of people on this card, Eubanks and Adesanya specifically, who I thought stood to benefit the most with good showings, and you just hate to see anything from the sidelines like that will basically mar that.
It's true. It is a bummer, but still an opportunity for Roxanne Modafferi
100%.
to get a win. And how about Roxanne Modafferi fighting at Madison Square Garden? Could you have ever imagined that?
Yeah.
In 2003, who would have ever imagined? Who would have ever imagined the women's MMA pioneer Roxanne Modafferi?
It is something you can't predict. I asked her about that specifically yesterday. I'm sure you probably talked to her about it too, but she said that she hasn't spent too much time really reflecting on that, didn't really want to get sidetracked by revering the venue or anything like that, but would wait basically until she looked back on it when it's all said and done. Everybody has their ways, Mark. Everybody has their different ways of handling this.
15-year pro.
She has been around for a long time.
15-year pro and actually better than she has ever been right now.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Like her career extends back basically to coincide with the beginning of the Zuffa era, which
incredible.
is just an amazing, amazing thing to accomplish in the sport. And she really is the same person, you know. Known her for at least 10 years, or I've been dealing with her for at least 10 years, and I feel like she is the exact same person the whole way.
And it's actually one of the best stories in the sport, the way she's been able to turn around her career from someone who people thought, I mean, how many years ago?
Yeah.
5 years ago, she was done.
Right.
After The Ultimate Fighter.
2 different stints on The Ultimate Fighter, which is unprecedented, right?
Also remarkable. But going to Las Vegas and getting out there with John Wood at Syndicate MMA have made all the difference for her.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. I think that we focused quite a bit on Eubanks heading in this fight, and it kind of defaulted into this matchup, but for Modafferi, it's a chance to, you know, exact a little revenge for that fight that happened last year, and not only that, but maybe use this as her own big moment, you know, to showcase herself to people who may not know. Very, very lively room. Think about the buzz now. We talked a little bit about this on the beat. I sort of feel like it's exactly the same. I don't really feel like New York is overly taken over by the UFC for this one.
It'll be easier to pinpoint when we get to the ceremonial weigh-ins later on today to see how many fans come to that.
I always feel like that is the real gauge too.
Because there was no press conference yesterday, which I thought was a mistake. I thought that Cormier and Lewis could have promoted this fight very well at a press conference. And they didn't do that. They did the media day, which, I don't know. I felt like it would have been very entertaining seeing the two of them go back and forth. That's a good point.
I would have liked to have seen that too. Both of them are very good on the mic. I think that Derrick Lewis is, in the sense of like maybe a Gegard Mousasi, or these guys who emerge. You've seen them around, but they emerge as these characters in the fight game. This was his big moment to do that, and or at least continue it, because I think if anybody in that whole UFC 229 translated big and became something more after their performance, it was Derrick Lewis. He picked up a ton of followers on social media and everything else. Just, I think people finally got him on a bigger scale. So it would have been fun to see him in a back and forth with somebody as versed at it as Daniel Cormier.
Pop culture star, Derrick.
Yeah. At this point, you know, he really is. If he beats Daniel Cormier and he has something, and I asked him this, he does not plan any of this. He took off his shorts. to throw him into the crowd, apparently. But I asked him, like, did you know you were going to say that your balls are hot? And he's like, no, this stuff just comes to him. His mind just works this way. It would be really interesting to talk to his wife at some point, and
I was trying to get him to bring his wife to media day, and he refused. we want to know the woman.
Yeah, I know. Who puts up with
beats.
this, essentially.
Yes.
He said she gave him a little bit of hell over the Ronda Rousey comment back in the day, so we know that she's just not riding along everything as easily and carefree as the rest of us. But, you know, Derrick Lewis gambles. Gambles with what he says as well. What a story he has. We hit on this a little bit earlier, but to find himself in a title shot, a chance to really ruin some narratives, but to also blossom in ways that maybe we never anticipated. Who knows? He gets by Daniel Cormier. Maybe we're talking about a Derrick Lewis Brock Lesnar fight. How weird would that be?
That seems unimaginable.
Yeah.
But it could very well happen.
In a very real sense, given the styles, that fight would be very compelling. I think that some people would look at that. Yeah, I think people would look at it.
The lead up to the fight would be very compelling.
I think that fight would appear on paper more competitive than if it's Cormier and Lesnar. I think that right now people would just assume that Cormier, given his wrestling, scaffolding, and everything else, would be able to, and his experience and just who he is, I think people would favor him in that fight. But if for some reason we end up with a Derrick Lewis Brock Lesnar fight at any point in the future, in the near future, that's a whole different thing.
That would be something.
Yeah.
And Cormier has said this week that he believes that Brock Lesnar will be in attendance on Saturday. We'll see.
Okay.
I know that he's in Saudi Arabia right now with WWE, so I'm not sure if he makes that trip back to make it in time for UFC 230, but we'll see.
I know that all those guys in the WWE were very reluctant, most of them, to be on this trip to begin with. I know that all of them want it to be over.
That is
an understatement.
That is a sticky situation.
Yeah. When is that show?
I believe it's happening right now.
Is it?
It's happening this morning. Our time here in the States.
The WWE's second venture in Saudi Arabia this year.
Indeed. I believe they have a 10-year contract.
Yeah. I know one thing. I know a couple of the people involved in it, and it was with pure dread that this date approached. It was with dread. They did not want to be dealing with this.
Well, a few of the more high-profile wrestlers, John Cena, Daniel Bryan, reportedly refused to go to Saudi Arabia after the alleged state-sanctioned murder of a journalist at the Saudi consulate in Turkey a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that is not an ideal situation in which to run an entertainment-based promotion through.
Didn't think that I would ever say the words state-sanctioned murder on an MMA broadcast.
Isn't that? I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. Well, let's break down that WWE card a little bit. No, I'm kidding. You can just see the people turning off their feed, turning it down.
There are more crossover fans than certain MMA fans would care to admit.
But the ones who don't like pro wrestling vehemently don't like it. They don't want anything to do with it. They make the little crucifix with their fingers.
They loathe pro wrestling. They loathe it.
Less than an hour to go here. And we're still waiting on what, five or
Derek Brunson,
Four
Derrick
guys.
Lewis, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, and Shane Moraes, right? Four.
Okay, yep, four
Four,
guys.
I believe. A couple Derricks,
Yeah.
a Shaman, and a Marcos.
I like to have a shaman involved, you know. Help man the communal spirit.
Exercise
drum
some of your
beat.
demons.
Yes. Let me ask you this, Mark, because you've been doing this for a while, and I think you were one of the early advocates of doing the early weigh-ins, and you're among the guys at the beginning who was talking about it and everything else. What do you think of it at this point? You still like the early morning weigh-in and kind of how this plays out?
Well, I don't like getting up early. That's what you're asking me, Chuck.
You still in California time?
I think ultimately it is a positive thing for the fighters.
Yeah.
I know that weight and misses have gone up, but there does seem to be something to this theory that when they use the beam scale, more fighters make weight. Use the digital scale, it's a little bit more exact. More fighters miss weight. And of course, in the old afternoon weigh-ins, they always use the beam scale, so more fighters did make weight. But I think ultimately, for the health of the fighter, it is better. They have more time to rehydrate. Now, in a perfect world, you would not need to have a morning weigh-in on Friday if fighters were not cutting, in some cases, obscene amounts of weight. You would not need to give them more time to rehydrate if they were not cutting an overwhelming amount of weight. So I think in a perfect world, there would be no need for them, but because this issue is pervasive, more time to recover is better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that when you talk to fighters themselves, I think still the general consensus is they like the morning weigh-in for the most part. I've heard a couple of people dissent on that, but I think that most fighters still appreciate it. I think that for the most part, I think that extra time of recovery is actually very beneficial to them.
It absolutely is. Most fighters, and I know there are some detractors who do not like the morning weigh-ins, and there are reasons, and some of them are very legitimate. It does seem like it is just more difficult to cut weight in the morning than maybe it is throughout the day leading into a 4 o'clock or a 5 o'clock local time weigh-in.
Yeah.
So I understand that, and I appreciate that, but I think most fighters get more out of the recovery time than the negatives of trying to cut weight in the morning.
I think that when this started, I couldn't have predicted that the number of missed weight, that number would basically, I don't know, I wouldn't say skyrocket, but it has been significant. The amount of fighters who've missed weight, as we looks like somebody's making their way to the scale.
All right, yes, we have.
Let's see who this
movements.
is here.
And
As the people spill through the door. Here he is, the shaman.
Moraes. Who, of course, fights Julio Arce on the FS1 prelims. 1-4-6 for Shaman Moraes. Should be a very good featherweight fight against
Pounds his
Julio
chest.
Arce. Took the time, but made it.
Made it look easy.
I really do like that fight, Chuck. I think that's
You like that one?
I think that's going to be a very good fight.
Tell you what, just kind of examining the card top to bottom. There are a few of them that stand out like that. There's a couple of good looking fights on there. I think the Jason Knight Jordan Rinaldi fight has a chance to be very good. And obviously we know, it's going to be an action fight. Jason Knight doesn't like to hold back in there. It's kind of like a more wiry and more southern Chris Lieben. And Jordan Rinaldi, I think he wants. he can punish aggression a little bit, and I think that's a good. That makes
Good
for a very
mix.
combustible matchup right there. Anxious to see Carl Robertson's fight. Just in talking to him, I think he kind of looks at it as a chance to steal the spotlight of the middleweights on this a little bit and make a statement. And that's how you should look at it, you know?
Absolutely. So about 45 minutes remaining in this 2-hour official weigh-in window. We have 3 fighters left. Derrick Lewis, the headliner of this card, against Daniel Cormier. Lewis going for the UFC heavyweight title. Have not seen him yet.
Let's hope we see him at some point.
Let's hope we see him.
As I see the hate come in about our WWE. What was it all about? 1.5 minute conversation.
Also waiting on Derek Brunson and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. 2 of those names are heavyweights. Although Derrick Lewis, we have seen him cut weight to make the 265-pound limit in the past. Does seem leaner this week, but
He did.
not sure.
I really wasn't concerned with him, but as time kind of ticks up the clock here, it does make you wonder if he might be having a slight issue. Hopefully not. It's just as likely, as Casey just said, that he's just sleeping in.
And Marcos Rogerio de Lima is almost certainly sleeping in because he has fought at light heavyweight in the past, and also middleweight. So he's probably in no great rush to get to the scale, not cutting weight, probably just doing his thing. Derek Brunson taking a little bit longer than I would have expected. He's a guy that he's never had a problem making weight. Never missed weight. And yet here we
That's a good question. I don't think so. Does Kelleher ever miss weight before?
I will look that up.
Brian Kelleher missed weight by 1 pound. Big fan of the MMA
not.
beat. He's been lobbying to get on there for a while now. But not if he's going to miss weight.
That's the requirement.
Are there weight classes for the MMA
Oh
beat?
man, I wouldn't want to know what the weight classes on that show are. Luke Thomas must weigh in the vicinity of 395 pounds.
All right. Someone is coming into the room here to weigh in.
Let's see who it is. Here's your boy.
And it is Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Who fights Adam Bajorek in the opener of the card on Fight Pass. Let's go. It's a heavyweight fight.
De Lima has certainly filled in.
253.2.
That's pretty crazy.
253.2. Mr. Rogerio de Lima saw Daniel Cormier and said, "I will raise you, sir, as a former light heavyweight, and I will weigh in 2 pounds heavier."
Yeah, that's
253.2. Former light heavyweight. Marcos Rogerio de Lima.
something.
This is a man shot that in his last fight, he fought Oven St. Pierre in the light heavyweight division, and now he's 253 pounds.
I wouldn't have wanted to know what his weight cut was then, back in the day.
He's
certainly
not fun, apparently.
a full-bodied fellow. I mean, he's.
Would you call
he's
him
carrying some
barrel-chested?
He's got a.
Is he a barrel-chested gentleman?
I would say so.
Well, still left 2 people,
Got 2
Derek
guys.
and Derek.
That's right, the Derricks. Make sure Derrick Lewis is on weight. That's all we need.
Coming up on about 40 minutes remaining.
Cruising right along.
If you're just tuning in, my name is Mark Raymundi, here with Chuck Mindenhall. This is the UFC 230 official weigh-in broadcast. We've seen one half of the main event. Daniel Cormier successfully make weight for his heavyweight title defense. Still waiting on Derrick Lewis, the challenger. The co-main event is official between Chris Weidman and Ronaldo Jacare Souza. That is a middleweight fight. We've seen two people miss weight. Brian Kelleher by 1 pound, and Sijara Eubanks, notably, by 1.2 pounds for a key women's flyweight fight against Roxanne Modafferi. Still waiting on two people to weigh in. Still about 40 minutes left. One of them being the aforementioned Derrick Lewis, and the other, another Derek Brunson, who is scheduled to fight Israel Adesanya on the pay-per-view main card.
It's a tough spot for Derrick Brunson in the sense that it's always tough to go against a new phenom, because there's a at this moment, I think everybody is intrigued by Israel Adesanya. They want to see how far he can take this thing. They want to know if the hype is real. And he's still very much in the honeymoon stage with fans in that sense. So what his task is to ruin all that. And that's a tough thing to be fronted with. But I tell you one thing, in talking to Derek Brunson yesterday at the media day, he seemed to relish the idea, that he had that power in his hands. And we've seen him a little bit be more of a feast or famine kind of fighter in the first round. Either he goes out or he scores a knockout in the first round. I think 4 or 5 of his last finishes were all first round, very quick finishes. And he's been finished that way a couple of times himself. So there's real possibility that this fight could be quick.
It certainly could be, and it's funny you said that, Chuck, about Brunson and the current position he's in the middleweight division as somewhat of a gatekeeper for Adesanya. And he told me yesterday at media day that the word that he used was he's pissed at himself. He said, pissed at myself, because he feels like he should already be in a title position. He should already be maybe fighting for the middleweight title, not being the guy they're pitting up against this hot young prospect in Adesanya. It's very interesting. You don't often hear that from fighters where they feel like they messed up along the lines and they're in a bad position in the division. Their role in the division is not where they think they should be right now.
It's crazy with Derek Brunson. Some of his finishes have been fairly emphatic and spectacular. An inch here or there. He's one of the crushers in the game. Sometimes for him, I think it's just it's a 50-50 gamble, and
like in a Robert Whittaker fight, right?
Right.
He had a decent chance to knock Robert Whittaker out in that fight. He landed some big shots, but ended up getting knocked out himself.
Yeah.
Brunson is the guy who gave Yoel Romero a run.
He did.
Once upon a time. Won the first 2 rounds against Romero before losing in the third.
Interesting to see if he comes out as aggressive. Some people over time, when it becomes expected of them, that's when they switch things up and maybe they get a little more patient in there. And it'd be interesting to see what he does. Adesanya was one of the first guys to weigh in today, and as usual, he made a very light in his step and very confident.
One of the first to weigh in. Israel Adesanya, he was number 6 on the scale today.
The coffee is beginning to report for our man Marco Mondi.
You go now, you'll be able to see them coming back. So like, let's talk, Chuck.
Yeah. This should be fun. You want to talk? Casey, you want to join me?
MMA stands for Mixed Martial Arts.
It's not the mixed marital arts, are you sure?
Little known fact.
Okay. We're educating an audience now.
Fans often ask me, what is this?
This is the fun part of the early morning weigh-ins. It's the filler portion when you try to figure out what to say.
This is the part where I show up. You know, this is where I shine.
Yeah. Usually this is where you come in with your facts.
Yeah. So Mark's all like, weigh in, guys fight better when they don't get away. We get it, But I come with the hard stuff. Mixed martial arts.
Mixed martial arts. I like the mixed martial arts. When is the next one of those coming out? Do you have one planned?
I would love to.
Yeah.
All these fight promotions keep having fights all
Right.
the time.
See, as a writer, I maybe go to 1 out of every 3 biggest shows. You're at every show. So things that well-established franchises like mixed martial arts fall by the wayside a little bit. But I will say that is one of my favorite. That's probably one of my favorite things we do at MMA Fighting. You ever done one on Ben Askren? You got to get to Ben Askren. Have you done him yet? His dog? He's got a really cool dog. Yeah.
I have a list of my future projects to do list. There's about 10 dogs I want to hit up.
We need a rankings system for fighter dogs.
That is good.
As we await our last couple of fighters to get on the scale. Derrick Lewis.
Double Derrick.
Now we're starting to worry.
Derrick Lewis missing weight will be the most mixed martial arts thing ever.
Oh God. Let's hope Derrick is just taking his time, and I'm talking about Derrick Lewis. But I suppose Derek Brunson has never really had a problem with making weight, but I suppose you just never know. He didn't seem overly concerned yesterday.
Does he really ever seem concerned?
No. No.
I'm sure he's concerned about getting that paycheck.
Yeah. You talking about Derrick Lewis?
Yeah, Derrick Lewis.
Yeah, Derrick Lewis is never concerned.
Oh, Derrick Lewis. Yeah, Derrick Lewis.
And it looks like somebody's coming to the scale here.
Commission officials are getting in place. Someone is about to hit the scale.
I bet it's Derrick.
And that person is Derrick Lewis. One of our headliners, he fights Daniel Cormier in the main event of the UFC heavyweight title tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden.
The drama picks up a notch here as the room goes quiet.
264.6.
264.6. Derrick Lewis makes weight, and the main event, the UFC heavyweight title fight, is official. Derrick Lewis looking in better shape than we have seen him look in the past.
What a interesting position for this man. We always talk about the puncher's chance, and there's never been an embodiment of that idea that's a bigger example than maybe Derrick Lewis, who has one of the biggest punches in the game. A puncher's chance, I mean, if he lands anything, even clips Cormier.
A man of his size with that power, even late in the fight when his cardio might be running low, he can still connect with a very powerful punch. We saw it literally just 4 weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
Alexander Volkov dominated Derrick Lewis.
That fight was
for
over.
3 rounds. That fight was over early on, it
Yeah.
seemed. And then Derrick Lewis in the closing seconds uncorked a monster of a right hand and knocked Volkov out.
On the one hand, people remember that he was getting beaten up in that fight for almost the balance of 3 straight rounds. He was in trouble multiple times, and he looked hurt and almost out of it a couple of times in that fight. So on the one hand, that's the lingering memory is him getting pieced up for that whole fight, and then on the other hand, what perseverance and what a chin, and what strange self-belief to just at the very end land the Hail Mary and snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat, essentially. And that's how Derrick Lewis ended up here. That punch was what, at least $1 million punch. He's got endorsement deals.
That's what he said. The punch was worth about $1 million to him. But not just the punch struck. I think what he said after the fight, the now viral "my balls was hot"
Right.
post-fight speech that has been circulated everywhere. He's gained, I think, 750,000 Instagram followers since October 6th. That's an incredible amount, and that tide, that wave has gotten him here to this title shot. He's made the absolute most of it, signing a sponsorship deal with Popeyes. He has a new sponsor for, it's not Dude Wipes, but it's a similar product where I think it's Ball Wash? Is that what his sponsor is? I hope I didn't make that up.
I'll tell you what, one thing that is definitive is people have been waiting a long time for some hot balls to rally around and warm their hands around. I think that's just Derrick Lewis tapped into a market that's been starving for something.
He's one of a kind.
He is one of a kind. And it's funny because he is a very soft-spoken one of a kind. He's ultimately a soft-spoken fellow, but his sense of timing and humor is unparalleled, really.
I was talking yesterday to his coach, Bob Perez, down in Houston, and he told me that Derrick Lewis is an introvert.
I believe
back in the gym. He's an introvert. He doesn't say a whole lot. That's not the same guy that we see on the regular.
Right.
In front of the cameras. In front of the cameras, it's different. I was right. It's a product called Ball Wash.
Ball Wash.
Yesterday, Derrick Lewis
Only in
on
MMA.
Instagram, my balls may get hot, but at least they won't be funky thanks to @ballwash.
Get that money, Derrick Lewis.
Use code BEAST for 20% off at ballwash.com. #LiveBallsOut.
I feel like this is one of those only
Corporate
in
America's
MMA.
own Derrick Lewis
This is
hawking his products.
gotta use what
that?
you have, Mark. Big time opportunity. He's making the most of his opportunity anyway. I mean, it's win-win for Derrick Lewis at this point.
Oh, Derrick Lewis in many ways has already won.
Right.
He's already won. Just being here, getting this shot. He said a few weeks ago that he's making more money for this fight than all of his fights previously this year combined. So that puts this purse somewhere north of $800,000, $900,000. Could be even $1 million purse for him. So that is massive. That is really huge for a guy that many don't put in that category of being an elite UFC fighter. But here he is. He has the resume, and now he has all the periphery things needed as well.
And if you subscribe to the theory that having a why not attitude is the most dangerous attitude to take into the cage, I mean, that's exactly where Derrick Lewis is in this fight. There's very little pressure on him to go out there and do something.
Very
I
little
think
pressure.
most of the pressure falls to, obviously, Daniel Cormier, who has a longish-term plan to fight Lewis and then fight Brock Lesnar, and then maybe possibly retire at the age of 40 in March. But obviously the John Jones trilogy fight may change those plans up a little bit.
It is a bit of a gamble for Daniel Cormier. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Because he is staring that huge Brock Lesnar payday in the face in just a few months from now. I mean, Brock Lesnar is eligible to go in early January off his USADA suspension. And Daniel Cormier is rolling the dice a little bit and taking this fight against Derrick Lewis. If he loses, he does not get that monster Brock Lesnar payday.
Yeah. Of course, in talking to Cormier, and if you want to break it into a simplistic idea of risk versus reward, he points out, Madison Square Garden, fighting, at a main event in Madison Square Garden, which is a legacy achievement, essentially. And then, of course, all the money that goes into what he'll pull in for this fight. So the reward outweighs the risk, I think, ultimately. But still, if you look at it from just what he wants to do, what's set up for him, and the money he would leave on the table if he doesn't fight Brock Lesnar, the risk is certainly still there.
Certainly. And I understand why Cormier would want to do this. And look, he feels like Derrick Lewis is a guy that he would be comfortable taking a short notice fight against.
Right.
He said it. He said it flat out. If it was Stipe Miocic, he would want a full training camp. Derrick Lewis,
How's that for
not so much. But we'll see. We'll see. That could come back to bite him. It really could.
But if anybody can discount an opponent, it's Daniel Cormier, If anybody can do that with a little bit of grace and without malice, it's a Daniel Cormier.
I think it's a risk if he doesn't take this fight, because I still think there's a good chance he doesn't fight Brock.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
There's a good chance one of John loses to Alex.
That's a good point too. Like, as we know, what he's trying to do is actually semi-ridiculous if you just follow the trajectory of MMA, because almost nothing comes across as it's supposed to. Any of the best laid plans, what's the percentage of things that actually work out the way they're supposed to in the sport? So, yes, you're right. You take what's immediate and what is guaranteed. You're going to do that in the short term. So Daniel Cormier, I mean, it's hard to hate on him for basically crossing things off his bucket list at this point, like fighting in Madison Square Garden. And it's a very winnable fight. I mean, he's stay out of Lewis's power shots and do what he does, and I think he'll be fine.
Lewis isn't really a one-shot stand-up guy. He's gonna have to finish him on the ground.
Yeah.
Did you say bucket list shots?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a bucket of.
KFC,
That wouldn't be a bucket of Popeye's fried chicken.
America's favorite punster, Mark Ramonde, returns with an all-new pun.
Couldn't help myself.
Yeah, sometimes these things are just too tempting.
We should have gotten Popeyes to sponsor this broadcast. So about 20 minutes left now at the UFC 230 official weigh-ins. One person left to hit the scale, and that is Derek Brunson, who is scheduled to fight Israel Adesanya tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden. We've seen the two heavyweight main event participants weigh in successfully, Daniel Cormier and Derrick Lewis. We just saw Derrick Lewis a few moments ago register a whopping 264.6 on the scale. Cormier weighed in earlier this morning at 251.2.
Yep.
We've also seen Chuck, the co-main event, weigh in successfully. Chris Weidman, Jacare Souza, they're good to go. And we've had the two weighed misses, Brian Kelleher and Sajara Eubanks. Both will be fined 20% of their purse. 20 minutes left, give or take.
Now it's going to be interesting if Brunson does miss weight. Will Israel take the fight? He's going to be already significantly smaller than Brunson regardless. So if Brunson comes in over, do you think Izzy...
That's a good question, too. I think Adesanya would not miss this opportunity, but at the same time...
What if he comes in like 190?
Well, if it's significant,
We've never seen Brunson really struggle to make weight before.
So we have seen Kelleher.
That's true. That's true. All the suspense will end soon. Later today, is it at Madison Square Garden? Are they doing it at the Garden when John Jones is?
John Jones is Hulu Theater at Madison Square
Oh, that's
Garden.
right, the Hulu Theater. Same theater that PFL is running their event out of, I believe. The December 31st event. But John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson will have their press conference later today. That should be interesting.
5 p.m. local time. Should be very interesting. The first time that we've seen John Jones in front of the fans and the media since UFC 214 last year. First time since his second positive drug test.
Right. What a crazy thing, you know.
Has Gustafsson been in front of the media since? When was the last time?
Alexander.
I feel like it's been longer since we've seen him.
Gustafsson has not spoken.
That's a good point too. Yeah.
For quite some time.
Gustafsson, yeah, he's been out of action. I think somebody pointed out.
Longer than John.
Yeah, somebody pointed out that he's only had a couple of fights in the last few years. Which you
Last
lose.
time Mr. Gustafsson fought was May 2017.
Wow. You kind of lose sight of that because that's obviously
And John Jones
conspicuous
fought
when Jones
more
is missing and
recently.
he's not fighting, you know. That's unusual.
Paul Felder weighing in right now.
Get Paul Felder.
Paul Felder, the Irish Dragon, weighing in for funsies.
Admiring his guns. And slapping the abs.
How much is it?
He's taking off the shirt.
A little practice weigh-in. He is not a backup fighter. He's just here as a member of the media. He's on the broadcast.
As far as we know. 193.6 for Paul Felder.
193.6 for lightweight Paul Felder. 193.6.
Paul Felder, who is going to be working his first pay-per-view as the
Indeed.
color.
Paul Felder walks around apparently in the light heavyweight division, but fights in the lightweight division.
Yes.
That's a big boy.
So you should be fighting in his
Been a
walking
good year
weight.
for Paul.
Paul Felder would have missed weight if you were in the middleweight division.
Everybody wasn't blinded by my skin up there.
And now he's making jokes about his own pallid skin. The Irish Dragon.
I do it for health purposes, though. It's sun. It's not you. I naturally tan.
Actually, on your Paul has seen me in the local theater.
That's a good point.
Him being the thespian.
That is, yes. A man of the stage back in his Philadelphia youth.
Indeed. Trained actor.
Yeah.
Went to school for it.
He has a lot of charisma. And he can fight pretty well too.
I haven't heard that part.
Yeah, look it up. There's footage. There's actual footage of him fighting too, so check it out sometime.
Interesting. I can see him being the lead in King Kong the musical. It's playing down the street. I want to see it.
King Kong the musical?
Yeah.
Wow. See, I feel like I never maximize my time here in New York. I never actually seek out the really good stuff that's going on. I just kind of fall headlong into the first pub I come across, and the day goes away.
Sunday is Wednesday.
Fat or not fat?
And the 193-pound Paul Felder says he is fat as...
What I would give to be that fat.
Yes, I know. Oh, Felder in rare form right now.
That is an angry thespian.
The angry thespians. All right, what do we got here? 15 minutes. 15 minutes for Derek Brunson, the last remaining fighter. There's always one, Casey. You know this. There's always one guy. It's going to take the entire clock.
So about 15 minutes left.
So the city of New York actually shares the same name as the state.
Interesting, interesting. It's redundant, but it's interesting. It's also redundant.
I couldn't think of anything else.
That's your history lesson about New York? Well, Mark is from here. Mark knows a little bit about the history of New York.
I am indeed from New York.
I hear the water is different here.
It's different.
That's why the bagels are different.
Tap water in New York is excellent.
It is
it?
excellent.
Is that true?
The tap water here rules.
Tap water is excellent. And people might scoff that is the reason why the bagels and pizza are so good, but au contraire, take it from me, a New York native. There's nothing better than a New York bagel. In fact, I have one right now. I'm just waiting to dig into it.
I scoff.
Yes.
God bless you.
How long have you lived in Los Angeles now? A few years.
Almost 4 years.
That's
in
crazy.
LA for me. Almost 4 years. I've been gone for a little bit.
So how much better would Derrick Lewis be if he got the fight at his walking weight rather than this big weight cut he had to do?
I know. See, those are the types of questions that you can really get lost in.
I would like to see that weight cut video of Derrick Lewis.
What does he walk around at, Derrick Lewis?
Sure. I bet if he doesn't train for about 2 months, I'm sure he gets over 300.
Yeah. He's a big dude, man.
He's not a small man. He's not a small man.
I guess he's not taking the advice from his doctor about taking some weight off his back.
Not exactly. He does look leaner though. He does. He looks leaner. He looked leaner this week than he has in the past. So about 13 minutes remaining, and still no sign of Derrick Brunson, who's scheduled to fight Israel Adesanya in a middleweight bout tomorrow night at Madison Square Garden. We've seen everyone else hit the scale. Just waiting on one man.
And one man only.
Wherefore art thou, Derrick Brunson?
He's got 13
That was from Shakespeare.
minutes. Yeah.
Shakespeare.
Who's also from New York, I believe.
Yeah, he is from New York. I think from Williamsburg. I think a local hipster poet from Williamsburg.
That's right. I think he runs an independent bookshop out there.
Yes.
Had some off Broadway plays, I believe.
So we're at that giddy time of the day where there's really nothing more to say.
I ran into Israel this morning around 7:30. I'm like, what? It's like we just kind of look at each other. We're like, yeah, we're not morning people.
Yeah.
He's like, he said, weigh-ins and flights is the only reason he's ever had to wake up in the morning.
I believe that about him.
Remember, he did an interview in the MMA Hour. He was lying sideways in his bed the whole time.
Yeah. Well, certain guys can pull that off, you know what I mean? Right. 10 minutes to go here.
Yeah, just about 10 minutes
Yeah,
to go.
he's going to-
We're coming down to the wire. We are coming down to the wire.
Sitting on a park bench. Dun, dun, dun.
Getting some singing here,
Well, I remember
Mr. Mendenhall.
previous Golf Channel hosts would mix up a song here and there, you know. A lovely timbre, indeed.
What is this, the Golf Channel? Is it the Money Channel?
I don't know. Today it didn't have to be a golf at all. It's so loud in the room.
It's subdued now.
Yeah.
Have there been any songs actually written about this city? I'm not sure.
Not New York City. There have been songs written about Albany. I think there was one about Syracuse. Let's see what we got here. I see the door open.
Oh, wait.
I feel like the People's Court. Nope, now it's closed. The door is closed. So close.
False
Great
alarm.
call.
False alarm.
A legendary sports call right there. The door is open. Now it's closed.
Now it's open again. No, that's just. All right, well,
We are still waiting.
he's still got 10 minutes on the clock here, so Derrick Brunson.
There are some fans in the building wearing pro wrestling shirts. I see there's an NWO shirt sighting.
Really?
NWO.
This room?
Yeah, there's a Johnny wrestling shirt, Johnny Gargano, NXT. They're not home watching the WWE Crown Jewel from Saudi Arabia.
Crown Jewel. Cancel your subscription.
I did. I canceled my subscription. Yep.
See, that's all you can do, right? That is a legit protest. All right.
And we are really getting close.
We are getting close.
Ladies
Derrick
and
Brunson with a flair for dramatics here.
really making us wait here.
I'm here.
I want him to come out and do like the Willy Wonka thing where he's limping and then. Mark Ramonde is getting very, very anxious. Think about running water.
Water.
Did I leave the faucet on? No, but seriously, the tap water is really good out here.
Why is tap water so good out here?
Fluoride. Look into it. So we're about 8 minutes away, and still don't know where Derrick Brunson is. Maybe Paul Felder will step in to fight Israel Adesanya tomorrow night.
Well, he's overweight.
Maybe that's why he was weighing in.
Overweight, but he'll pay the fine, and
Yeah.
he's not far enough overweight that they would cancel the fight. When these weigh-ins started, I would not have expected Derrick Brunson to be the man that we would be waiting for here. But here we are. It's 10:53 a.m.
It's kind of interesting. The two fighters that already missed weight chose to.
That is a good point.
Not take it to the limit.
Yeah, I never understand that when they weigh in, you know, the full hour to go or something like that. Maybe you're just at that point you're saying this is it. I'm not cutting the weight anymore. But
some fighters have kind of played the system a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like. But they come in like 5 pounds over.
yeah, still a little surprised by the Brian Kelleher missing weight.
You missed weight by a pound.
He missed
still
it.
an hour early. That's unique.
Yeah, yeah.
We last saw Derrick Brunson in January. He lost by first round knockout to Jacare Souza. That loss snapped a 2-fight winning streak for Brunson. He had victories over Chuck Mindenhall's good pal, Judo Dan Kelly.
That's right.
As well as Lyoto Machida.
Judo
Still a
Dan
factor
Kelly.
in that middleweight division. Can still beat just about anyone, I would say, in that middleweight.
He can for sure.
Because of his heavy hands and his wrestling ability. But first things first, Chuck has to make the scale. Has to hit
That's
the
true.
scale, has to weigh in successfully. And we are just 6 minutes away.
He is making this far more dramatic than it probably needs to be. Unless there is a problem.
It's not very often that someone comes right down to the wire like this. It's happened before. But this is a tad unexpected. Of course, everyone else has hit the scale. Daniel Cormier, Derrick Lewis, Chris Weidman, Jacare Souza, other main card fighters, Jared Cannonier, David Branch, Jack Marshman, and Carl Robertson. And Brunson's opponent is Israel Adesanya. The door is open now. Slightly ajar, and it's the drama builds here at the Marriott
There's
Marquis
tension in this room
Midtown
right now.
Manhattan.
Sounds like you're narrating a movie.
I am narrating. Mark Willenwall from the Sporting News is chiming in over here.
5 minutes.
Let's face it, we sound
5
like
minutes
fools.
left. They're just joining us.
What have been some of the most dramatic last minute weigh-ins? Obviously,
Jeez.
DC, Anthony Johnson.
Yeah. Wait, that's more emphatic the way that door just opened.
We have
This is it.
We have some movement. I believe this is it.
This is it.
Commission officials entering back into the room. Is Derrick Brunson here? He has 4 minutes to go.
He is taking it down to the last minute. .56 right now.
4 minutes left. Seems like Brunson is here. But there has been no sign of him
3 minutes
in
left.
this room just yet.
It looks like the officials are anticipating him walking through that door, but so far he has not done that.
We are getting close to a final countdown for these official weigh-ins. Derrick Brunson, 3 minutes to go. Still waiting on Derrick Brunson. Casey asked me earlier what have been some of the more dramatic early weigh-ins. Of course, Cormier at UFC 210, UFC 200, Misha Tate, as well as Johnny Hendricks and Kelvin Gastelum, all weighing in within the last 5 minutes of those weigh-ins. Misha Tate almost missed the 2-hour window, but she was in the building with enough time, and she hit the mark. So there have been some dramatic moments in these early weigh-ins, and we are gearing up for another one. We are only
2 minutes.
2
2 minutes.
From this.
2 minutes.
I guess, I don't know if anyone knows, is it a hard 11 o'clock? Or
It's
is it
not.
one of those kind of...
As long as they're in the vicinity before the window's over.
Vicinity being...
It seems like he's here.
Okay.
It seems like
New
I mean,
Jersey.
I imagine.
Jersey, Eastern time.
So we are really cutting this one close.
We are.
It is 10:58.
Derrick Brunson always in a hurry in his fights to put his guy away, not in a hurry to get on the scale. This is the balance.
Another dramatic weigh-in was earlier this year, UFC 225. Yoel Romero missing weight and coming back and missing again by just a few decimal points. Just a few hundredths of a pound.
All right, 1 minute. I guess we're not going
1
hard.
minute left. 1 minute left. Is Derrick Brunson here?
Didn't Mackenzie Dern barely miss weight dramatically in her last?
The door is open again.
Okay, let's see if this is him. 1 minute.
Commission officials peering in.
Look at this.
They're heading
at the
toward
11th
scale.
hour.
1 minute remaining.
We are at 10:59, and here comes Derrick Brunson.
Here is Derrick Brunson, who is in good spirits.
All smiles
Derrick
as
Brunson,
well.
all smiles. No towel needed. He's on the scale.
185.8.
185.8 for Derrick Brunson as the clock hits 11 a.m.
Can you
at
imagine?
the buzzer. Derrick Brunson, 185.8. His
Hope it
fight
is wrong.
with Israel Adesanya is official. Derrick Brunson made us wait, but no
Yes.
problem making the mark. Made us wait, but hit weight.
That's right.
No problem. And I think we're gonna wrap this up. We're done. It's 11 a.m. Chuck.
2 hours.
We have
Good Lord.
2 hours on the nose. We have the press conference, the UFC 233 press conference later with John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson, Chris Cyborg, and Amanda Nunes. That is 5 o'clock local time. Get back with us for that, and then of course the ceremonial weigh-ins at 6 p.m. later. Both of those at the Hulu Theater at MSG. For Chuck, I'm Mark. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Thanks for hanging out with us.